Hello, and welcome to Open Access and Copyright, lessons only 2020 could teach us. And yes, I did tweak my title slightly since I submitted it. First, I want to thank the organizing committee for taking the responsible initiative of moving the conference online. It keeps us safe, but it also allows us to keep talking at a time when it is increasingly important to ensure the public interest initiatives of access to medicine, culture, and news remain robust. I also want to thank the committee for including my brief remarks in this TED Talk on the agenda. My name is Lisa Mackelman. I'm a PhD candidate in law at the University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario, Canada. I've been very busy providing support to colleagues in the education sphere since the pandemic hit, but I'm hoping to wrap up that degree very soon. My main areas of interest in research are at the intersection of copyright and entertainment and media law in the digital environment. And as the time is tight, let's dive right in to my presentation. So, what did we learn in March? In Canada, on March 13th, all classes at Western moved online. On the same day, a group of copyright specialists at colleges, universities, and other organizations in the US and Canada were the first to deliver an authoritative statement emphasizing the importance of users' rights in this emergency online environment. To be clear, the emergency had no effect on the scope of these rights. The emergency nature of the pandemic simply helped to underscore the public interest aspect of copyright. On March 21st, myself and Samuel Trusso published a paper entitled Fair Dealing and Emergency Remote Teaching in Canada. Numerous papers and webinars would follow from ourselves and many others around the world as we grappled with this new situation. We found that there were clear takeaways. First of all, fair dealing and fair use practices already in place in the physical classroom supported the change to remote teaching. Secondly, public interest goals of copyright are also supported through the robust fair use and fair dealing for education during the pandemic. It wasn't safe to be physically close to each other. Third, technological neutrality supports the digital classroom through fair dealing and fair use. And finally, best practices in the classroom travel online. If what we're doing in class is good, that should be fine, just taking it online. Many of us were introduced to new, at least to us, technologies like Zoom and new terms like asynchronous learning. All asynchronous lectures are time shifting, which is a well-established legal principle. Parents suddenly became teachers when the lockdown went into effect. Everyone looked online for connection and entertainment. On March 24th, Neil Gaiman gave blanket permission via Twitter for educators, teachers, and anyone else to read his books aloud and post them on social media. The permission was a response initially to LeVar Burton, who was looking for public domain works to use on his show, Reading Rainbow. The world turned to streaming content, reading aloud to their kids, and posting TikTok videos. The world everywhere was watching. But so were the copyright maximalists, such as the Collection Societies and the Motion Picture Association of America. So, what happened in April? In Canada, the Federal Court of Appeal delivered an important decision in the York University and Copyright Licensing Agency case. They're very confusingly named as Access Copyright. I won't go into great detail on this particular case, but the important takeaway from the court was that the access copyright tariffs were in no way mandatory. If a university was relying on licensing and purchasing by other means, as well as fair dealing, they did not need an agreement with access copyright. Both sides have, of course, appealed to the Supreme Court. In May, George Floyd was killed on May 25th.
George Floyd.
Protests began immediately and spread worldwide. It quickly became a focus of the protests that many people needed to be educated about BIPOC. It also quickly became apparent that in addition to a lack of access to justice, those identifying as BIPOC also were at a disadvantage in accessing their own culture and having control over that culture. In addition, it became clear that much of their culture and historic experiences had been suppressed. The many issues that this event brought to the world's attention are far too numerous and complex to treat responsibly in this short presentation, but it is important to realize that the public interest that also underscored the rights available to copyright users in the educational context are just as important, if not more so here. In June, Penguin, Random House, HarperCollins, Wiley, and Hachette sued the Internet Archive for massive copyright infringement. The Internet Archive maintains a robust, controlled digital lending service. They rely on fair use and the first sale doctrine. The publishers objected to the Internet Archive changing their usual policy of a 14-day access to their sources to an unlimited access until the end of the health crisis under its National Emergency Library Scheme. In a time when people cannot physically visit or borrow from a library, this would seem to be an obvious public interest measure. The regular service that the Internet Archive offers, either a 1-hour access or 14-day access for library patrons, is based on a 1-to-1 ratio of digitized copies to physical copies owned by the Internet Archive. Patrons are also offered links to buy the books should they want their own physical copies of the works. Those who don't sign up for a membership can still access title pages, contents, and indexes, just the sort of material you would browse to decide if the book would be helpful for research or interesting for entertainment. Jumping ahead to August, in their story, the Internet Archive has requested a jury trial. In July, the MPAA stepped in to block the Copyright Amendment Bill and Performers Protection Amendment Bill in South Africa. Briefly, the fair use provisions in the bills would have introduced general exceptions from copyright protection. It provides for a non-exhaustive list of uses subject to fair use. These include research, private study, or personal use, including the use of a lawful copy of the work at a different time or a different device, so time shifting built in, criticism or review of that work or another work, reporting current events, scholarship, teaching, and education, comment, illustration, parody, satire, caricature, cartoon, tribute, homage, or pastiche, preservation of and access to the collections of libraries, archives, and museums, and ensuring proper performance of public administration. The amendments also include a 4-part test, which is very similar to the US test, but has a couple of interesting additions. The nature of the work in question, the amount and substantiality of the part of the work affected by the act in relation to the whole of the work, the purpose and character of the use, including whether, and here are the interesting additions, such use serves a purpose different from that of the work affected. Secondly, it is of a commercial nature or for nonprofit research, library, or educational purposes. And finally, the substitution effect of the act upon the potential market for the work in question. So the broad provisions for fair use are seen as essential in the educational community in South Africa, as students there have traditionally lacked access to affordable materials. This is also a problem in the creative industries, particularly when artists are selling their copyright to American interests when there's no market for them at home, or they don't feel that they can foreground them enough in their home cultures. In August, it was time to already start thinking about getting back to school. Like most educators, I spent a lot of the summer getting up to speed with delivering content online in an effective way. However, rather than having the university supporting open access materials through initiatives like the HathiTrust or the Internet Archive, there has been an increasingly risk-averse approach. Library personnel recently have been too busy to supply digital copies of material that would traditionally be available on reserve when students cannot physically go into the reserve desk. A lot of my summer was also spent encouraging people to make use of their fair dealing rights and explaining that these only apply when a copy is actually infringing. Open access materials and those already being paid for are not at issue here. They don't even enter the conversation. I was also consulted on a statement that went out to the Film Studies Association of Canada. How were they supposed to show their films to students? Did they have to resort to just showing them bits and pieces? My questions then were, is this a non-infringing copy that you're using? They were concerned about having to force their students to subscribe to things like Netflix and put that additional cost burden upon their students. Okay, when things are behind a learning management system, it's the same as being in the classroom. After all, watching an entire film is how the next great director or film critic is born. The entertainment industry needs to understand these things. Finally, September. The creative industries, the studios, the copyright owners, and collective societies are worried we are getting something for free, that we are hurting their industry. But open access and fair use, fair dealing provisions are what help to spur creativity. Creativity that is necessary for the continuation of those very industries. On September 25th, this video was uploaded to TikTok.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down?
The featured Fleetwood Mac song, Dreams, saw an 88.7% increase in streams. That's 2.9 million. Jump in download sales by 374%. That's 3,000 in 5 days. Apodaca, the poster, received $10,000 in donation. 5,000 of that he's giving to his mother as a surprise. Okay. Just a day or two after that, this particular mashup appeared. There's a lot going on in that video. There's so much North American culture in that particular mashup. I mean, I don't know, is pumpkin spice a thing everywhere in the world the way it is in North America? We just go crazy for it. I have one every morning. The need to nurture and share culture has never been more important. It's been the bridge during our social distancing. All of the events of 2020 so far have shown us that we can all be more educated, and access to knowledge and culture can lead to understanding and connection. Not listening at this time is not an option. Thank you so much for tuning in to my TED Talk. I'm going to go over to the other platform to field questions over there and hope to continue the discussion there. Thank you so much.